All right. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody to today's revision class. For 7 weeks now, we've been on this topic or this course about 313 animal ecology, and it's been quite interesting, right from topic 1 to topic 7 of this course. So much we have benefited from this course: the historical background of animal ecology, ecology of terrestrial animals and aquatic animals, growth rate and age structures of animal population, measurement of population dynamics, competition in organisms, population in animal ecology, behavioral ecology of African mammals. Those were what we were able to do for the past 7 weeks. So today will be a revision. And what we're going to do is to flip through the PowerPoints that we've been having for the past 7 weeks. So what I'll be doing is to share the screen for the PowerPoints that I have. Okay. All right. I have so many of them here, so I can start from any of the topic that we have. All right. Here was we talk about ecology of terrestrial and aquatic animals. That's what we did, and that was on week ecology of terrestrial, week 2. What we had on our week 2, and as a revision, just a preview of what we did. Talk about what terrestrial ecology is. It has to do with the study of land-based ecosystem, the population and communities of plants, animals, microbes, interactions, transfers with the streams and groundwater. What these organisms has to do, their role, the cycling of energy, water, other biogeochemical elements that are known. And we also talk about the aquatic ecology, which is the study of plants and animals that live in our rivers, streams, and their interactions. What we were made to understand was that these organisms are very sensitive to changes in water quality. And what we did was to group what constitutes the aquatic ecosystem, that's of terrestrial ecosystem. And we said we have 6 primary aquatic ecosystems, which is the ocean, lakes, rivers, streams, estuaries, and wetland. And for the terrestrial, we also have 6 primary ecosystems: tundra, taiga, temperate deciduous forest, tropical rainforest, and the grassland. Those were what we also considered. Then we also mentioned some of the few species of aquatic animals, the Clopidae, which is the bonga fish. We have the shade and the sardines. These are common fish we can see in our waterways. Also talks about the Atlantic bomba, the fast skate, and the horse mackerel. Mackerel belongs to the family Caragidae. And we also mentioned other groups, the royal threadfins, which are also known as the Petamius quinquarius, the African giant threadfish, and the croaker. So these are the few ones that we discussed on week 2, ecology of terrestrial and aquatic organisms. The next was the growth, age, and structure, which was on top 3. We did top 3, and talk about what population is. It's the collection of individuals of the same species that live together in a region. And also take the population, it was the study of population, the abundance, and how this changes over time. We note that this population can decline. Reason for being the fact that factors will regulate this population, the lack of resources, especially maybe the prey of decrease, and this may affect the predator. And we also understand what carrying capacity is, the maximum population abundance for a given species in which an environment can sustain. So it's what we call carrying capacity. Now we also talk about population density. So it's the number of individuals of certain species by unit area or volume. And the population distribution is the pattern of dispersal of them within that area. So we have population density, population distribution. So it does how these population are spread across the areas. Now we talk about density and distribution of population changes with time due to biotic factor and biotic factor, inorganic or organic factor. And the next slide shows factors that affect population size, 4 major of them. It's migration, mortality, plus population size, minus mortality, okay, and immigration. That's the 4 major factors that regulate population size. And as it does, this population has a pattern, 2-way pattern, where it grows. Either be exponential growth or it is logistic growth pattern. Then we'll talk about, that's also the exponential growth. All right, I think I was muted, so I couldn't hear myself. So that was what we could do. Then we'll talk about the age structure in the population. There is a number of individuals in different age classes. We'll talk about the pre-productive, productive, and post-productive. Age structure constitutes, and this is determining if the population is declining, stable, or increasing. The pre-productive, productive, and post-productive determine. The population that is declining means that they have more of post-productive. Population that is stable have almost same size of reproductive and reproductive, and a population that is increasing have more of reproductive age group. So we should also understand that organisms that are short-lived, they increase rapidly, and they have short span between generations. Whereas organisms that are long-lived, they increase slowly and have long span between generation. That will explain the how and the K strategy that we'll talk about. These are determining individual ages. How do we determine individual ages? By marking young individuals through time. You now examine a representative sample of carcasses of individuals. You now have to wear or replacement of teeth in India. You examine the wear and repair of teeth in India and other ungulates. The anal growth rings and the horns of sheep are also used to determine age of organisms or mammals. Plumage changes and wears and beds, growth rings and scales of fish. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ways that are used to determine age of any species. The chart here shows what we're talking about. Population that are expanding, stable, and decreasing. As we can see in A, we have more of pre-productive. That's why you can see that such populations are expanding, both the male and the female. But when you have almost equal number of productive, reproductive, and pre-productive age, such population is stable. But when you have less as compared to post-productive in their age structure, you're bound to have a diminishing population structure. So population growth curves are used to show the net results of births, deaths, and dispersion that occurs. It shows 3 phases, 3 to 5 phases. Most of them they show 3 phases of their growth pattern. We have the lag phase, we have the exponential growth phase, and the equilibrium. Equilibrium, as we know, it's a stage where the population can sustain the existing resources that we have. Now we're looking at factors that affect population. These are the general factors that we know that affect population. We have the birth rate or natality rate, death or mortality rate, age distribution, or what we know as age composition, immigration, carrying capacity, carrying resources, natural calamities, abiotic and biotic factors. These are the general characteristics that we talk about that affects population structure. And already, okay, this has been shown about population or age structure that we talk about. So that was what we had to do. Okay, what I did was to also break down. That was the biotic factor. These are the abiotic factors that affect populations: water, gravity, pressure, wind, turbulence, fire, temperature, salinity, and water current. So many of these factors. And when you are looking at terrestrial habitat, you realize that these factors differ. Most of what we're saying is that of aquatic, water, pressure, temperature, salinity, water current, whereas fire, winds, gravity, what affects terrestrial aspects of it. All right, so that was what we did. Let's look at your other lessons that we did. We're talking about okay, competition in organisms. And that was what we did in topic 5. And we said that competition is just an interaction between organisms or species in which the fitness of one is lower by the presence of another. Why there is competition? Because of limited supply of at least one resources such as food, water, and territory, which are used both to be required. And obviously one of the main interacting biotic about that affect community structure. We'll talk about types of competition. We'll talk about the intra-specific competition, interspecific competition, interference, apparent, and exploitation. And what we said These are many mechanical types of competition: interference, apparent exploitation. The two major, as we know, are the intraspecific and interspecific. Intra has to do with within, and inter has to do with outside competition that exists within organisms. And we also went on to solve the resource competitions at the territory. And we class them into three groups: territory, classical territory, spraying and defense. We have sunlight. Actually, this is applicable to plants. Those with broad leaves that trap light, not align the ones with smaller leaves to trap light. We have water, chemicals, taste, and other ones. So these factors, major factors that contribute to competition. That's what we did on 5 topic. And we also talk about population in animal ecology. Population animal, that was on week 6 of our topic. And we'll go on to look at what population already we did in the previous class. It's all the that both belongs to the same species and live in the same geographical area. And a population sets of organisms in which any pairs of members can breed together. Yes. But we have about right now, think about 2011 statistics we have regarding the human population all over the world, about 6.9. But now we have more than 7 billion presently. And there was a chart to show the trend that exists, population structure number that has been taken over time, right from 1804. 1804. So then we had to 1927 about 2 billion. Then 1927 to 1953 it increased to 3 billion. 1959 to 1974 was about 4 billion. 1974 to 1987 is about 5 billion. 1987 to 1999 is about 6 billion. 1999 to 2012, it's about 7 billion. And that's what we have presently as to estimation that is done. But the forecast we're going to have in 2021 will be 8 billion. That's what we're looking at. And another forecast about 2040 will be about 9 billion. So you can imagine how it will look like then. We all went on to look at factors that influence population, such as availability of food, predators, disease, and climates. We also put up these factors like food, quantity, and quality of food are important for population growth. As a prey population becomes larger, it becomes easier for prey to find. But if the number of predators constantly for the prey species might increase the number. So we're looking at population prey relationship affecting population growth. When we talk about competition, another organism require the same resources forever and so reduce growth of the population. For example, plants compete for light. So competition for territory and for mate can drastically reduce the growth of individual organisms. We also talk about parasites that they may cause disease and slow down the growth and reproductive rate of organisms within a population. That was what we did. And then the next slide shows biotic factor like temperature, oxygen availability, light availability, toxins, and pollutants as factors that regulate population. And I think the last one was talk about what's demography, which is a statistical study of human population. When you talk about human growth, there has to be statistical study. It's always 2 methods: either direct data from Vital Statistics Registry. These registries tracks all births and deaths, as well as certain changes in legal status, such as for those that are married, divorced, or those who have moved out or come in. Then we talk about the indirect methods of collecting data, where food that are not available. So in such case, one of these techniques is what they call sister method, where survey researchers ask women how many of their sisters have died or had children and at that what age. So this survey research can then indirectly estimate births or death rates of the entire population. Other indirect methods include asking people about siblings, parents, and also children. So that was what we did on week 6, and move on. Week 7, we'll talk about behavioral ecology of African mammals. Yes, that's what we did in week 7. We were able to understand what behavioral ecology is, the study of the ecological and enrichment basis for animal behavior. And we also talk about pioneer and the study of human behavior happens to be Nico Timberger that outlines 4 causes of behavior. But then he was able to divide what they call proximal causation into 2 factors, which are the ontogenic and mechanistic factor. When you talk about ontogenic factors, these are the entire sums of experience throughout the lifetime of an individual from embryo to death. Hence, factors include learning the genetic patterns giving rise to behavior in individuals. You also have the mechanistic factor. As the name implies, are the processes of the body that give rise to behavior, such as the effects of hormones on behavior and neuronal basics of behavior. So, like I said, there are 4 of questions that this theory is based on. One of them is that they want to know either what is the cause of the behavior, when ecologists propose answering these 4 questions. How did the behavior develop within the individual's lifetime? What functions or function does the behavior serve? Or how did the behavior evolve? So once one is undergoing studies of such, these questions are always a basic for the understanding of what human behavior is all about. So, and, we also went over to talk about bats. Said bats are mammals. Sometimes people call them flying rodents or flying rats, so on and so forth. So surprising that they are being grouped under mammals. And why we say it because of the characteristic feature they have. They have mammillary glands, which are quite peculiar to any species that belongs to the group of mammals. And we have 2 major of these. We have the Megachiroptera and the Microchiroptera, the megabats and the microbats. Talk about there are few that are fossilified or fossilized remains of bats that are only found in fossils. And then snake bats about 52 million years old. They've been found in the US. And we also mentioned that one of the successful futures that enable bats, outstanding futures rather, that enable bats to be successful in the environment because of flight. Yeah, it will be found in any regions of the earth. It will be found in the Antarctic, Pacific Islands. So it exists in all over the world. That's why they become successful. And they have a behavioral display, which is called echolocation. It's a perpetual system where ultrasonic sounds are emitted specifically to produce echoes. And these echoes help the bats to navigate, to pick signals, and also to detect enemies around. So with these features, they make them very successful. So that was what we've been doing for the past 6-7 weeks on this course. There was just a revision of what we've done. It's quite interesting. We've come to the end of this lecture. We'll update all that needs to be updated first week before I'll do that this week before you people start your exam. So in absence of any questions, since I don't have anybody joining me, I hope to see you guys, and I wish you guys the best in your exam.